Hey friends, welcome back. I'm here today with Jason McTiernan. I'm so excited. He had his own really long, hard journey with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS, but thankfully he fully recovered and had a pretty dramatic and remarkable recovery. And since then, he's been doing a lot of work with other people who are facing similar conditions and helping them to also get their health back. So today we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into brain training, and stick around to the end of the video because Jason's going to share with us a concrete brain training strategy that has worked for him and other people that he works with. So it's just really great to get some concrete tools out there. So thank you, Jason. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for doing this today.
You're totally welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I was ill with chronic fatigue syndrome for 11 years, and the amount of symptoms I had was absolutely incredible. I'll list them for you now. It was basically crushing fatigue. The fatigue level, it wasn't like tiredness at all. It felt like someone had pulled the cord on my energy system. It felt like I had a super bad virus waking up every morning, feeling like I had run a marathon or something like that. You know, I was 20 years old, so I should have been like healthy, energetic, having no worries whatsoever with my health, and I never had any kind of health issue before that. But I had also brain fog, POTS, so if I stood up too quickly, I could faint. I remember having to go to the hospital in ER a few times, checking out my heart to see was everything okay. The tests were always showing normal, which was like frustrating as well. But also poor temperature regulation, so my hands and feet were always cold. In the winter time, I remember in Ireland, I was like wrapping myself up in a sleeping blanket on the couch with like 10 layers on me, trying to keep warm when I couldn't. I remember I also had like post-exertional malaise, so if I did a little bit of exercise, I noticed that either the same day or within a few days, I felt like super bad after, even going for like a 10-minute walk or something like that. I also had severe muscle pain. So if I went for a short walk, at nighttime, my muscles used to be like burning, kind of felt like they were on fire. Digestion was affected as well. So irritable bowel syndrome for 10 years. I remember having to like eliminate all kinds of different foods from my diet, trying to figure out what could I actually eat and digest easily. And I lost a lot of weight when I was going through that as well. I also had multiple chemical sensitivities. So I remember going into a shopping mall one day, and my eyes were itchy, and my face was like inflamed a little bit as well. And I was wondering what had happened. It was actually just some perfume that was sprayed in a store. And so yeah, it's an incredible amount of things I had. My immune system was also very dysfunctional. So basically, I was noticing any kind of cold or flu or any virus that was going around, I was getting those colds and flus all the time, and some autoimmune issues as well, just like the multiple chemical sensitivities. I also had insomnia, so I was waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. very consistently, and sometimes with cold sweats and things like that as well. So there's obviously a huge amount of stress related to all those symptoms and everything. But yeah, I was bedbound at my worst for about a month at a time. And I really didn't know what I could do. I was basically just trying to research recovery stories. I tried everything that I could find to try and get better as well. Literally everything. I tried all kinds of alternative treatments. One of the things I was doing was I got myself a treadmill because the weather is not so good in Ireland most of the year anyways. I was walking for 2 minutes a day, and I thought, I'll be able to use the treadmill every single day because, it's not weather dependent then. And I added like a few seconds every day, and it very gradually built up to about 40 minutes walking per day. But then I crashed again because I hadn't dealt with the core patterns. So I was pushing myself way too much and too stressed about the illness. And I think I was too eager to get better. I was kind of pushing my recovery as well. But luckily, one day after 11 years of searching and trying and hoping to get better, I knew that I was going to get better someday, but I had to be relentless about trying all kinds of things. And I found brain retraining. So I was actually researching recovery stories for about 2 weeks consistently, and I found tons of recovery stories from people who'd used brain retraining. And I went for it, and then within 2 weeks, I was actually climbing some smaller mountains, and within 2 months, I was fully better. After about 6 weeks starting brain retraining, I was in Portugal, and I was exploring the whole southern coast of Portugal, hiking for up to 8 or 9 hours a day. I was kayaking through the caves. I remember running on the beach in the evening time when it was a little bit cooler. And I remember just feeling like absolutely filled with gratitude, finally having made it, finally having like freedom to be able to do whatever it is that I wanted to do without having to worry about my health or even having to think about my health at all, really. So now I actually help people all around the world, just like you said, to get better as well with my online brain training program. And basically, I think one of the toughest things for me was I didn't have a clear roadmap. I was trying to figure out things and trying all kinds of stuff, as you did, when you were getting better as well. But yeah, I aim, instead of it being like 11 years for me to get better, what if it could be like 11 weeks for someone to get better? And so that's my aim with my program, because it didn't take me 11 years to heal. It did take me quite a long time to figure out how to get better, but then getting better only took 2 months. And that's actually 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago to the day that I got better. And I never had any kind of relapse or anything whatsoever, because I dealt with the root cause of it. I wasn't treating the symptoms anymore. I tried to treat those symptoms for 11 years and it didn't work. But when I dealt with the root cause of it, then I got better permanently.
You did a really good job of summing that up, by the
quite
way.
a
I
lot.
know it's really challenging to sum up 11 years. Yeah. And I know it was really a nightmare because you were on the channel quite a while ago, actually. I had to look it up. It was October of
Right.
2020, over 2 years ago already. I can't believe. But yeah, so you shared your story here quite some time ago, and it's still to this day one of the most, to me, moving and remarkable recovery stories. Like, because your journey was intense and your suffering was horrendous, and it just seemed like it was really hopeless for you for a while. And then just have such a rapid turnaround it's just really exciting and just really hopeful for me to see that this can happen, even when people have been sick for so long and so sick that there's clearly, I believe, always hope.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I know I tried all kinds of different things over the 11 years, but I kept going. Like having determination that you can get better, and really committing to not trying to do everything at the same time, but doing something and putting your all into it. I totally believe that people can get better.
When you first told me this story, I mean, I was very new to this and interviewing people, but since then I've interviewed a lot of people. I think I'm coming up close to 100 people. And in the beginning, I've said it seemed like there weren't that many, like it was just all over the place. Everyone had a different story and it was very confusing. I'm like, wow, every person I talked to recovered in some crazy different way. But then in time, I started really seeing patterns, and it wasn't like I had to search for them. It's just just interview after interview after interview. More and more people were saying similar things to what you said, whether it was like brain training, some aspect of addressing the nervous system. It's definitely, for me anyways, an undeniable theme that this is something that is working for a lot of people. So this is why you and I were really excited to do this video, to just look a little bit deeper into what does that even mean? Because when I first heard about brain training, it sounded so mysterious and kind of like maybe coding for your brain. Like, is it like, well, what, like something weird happening in some dark room, like mysterious equations, or like, I'm like, how do you retrain your brain? So essentially, I've come to understand it, through you and many other people that I've talked to, that it is your mind impacting your physical health. So can you give us some examples of what that looks like?
Yeah, so some incredible examples of our mind influencing our body. So I remember I was looking at this kind of information when I was getting better as well, and it made such a huge impact. And so basically, what is the number one study thing in Western medicine? It's the placebo effect. Everything has to be tested against it. And I know that in Western medicine, sometimes it can be viewed as a nuisance because everything has to be tested against it to prove things are actually effective. But oftentimes, actually, the placebo effect is like the majority of the effect. It's basically someone taking a sugar pill or a saline injection, and they have a positive expectation that they're going to get better. So there's no active ingredient, obviously, in the sugar pill or saline injection, but they have a really strong positive expectation they're going to get better. And with placebos as well, it can be up to 100% effectiveness. So it's not like it's something that's weak, it actually can be really, really powerful. So some examples of the placebo effect are really awesome examples are Dr. Bruce Mosley from Houston, Texas. So he did a study, it was actually elderly guys that had knee arthritis, and it was very crippling arthritis. They were hardly able to walk at all, and the level of pain that they had was unbelievably high. But what he did was, it was a complex study, so he actually had 3 groups, and it was arthroscopic knee surgery. So they'd have like a little camera, they'd make an incision in their knee, and they'd put the camera in their knee joint, and they'd actually use the camera to help them to do the surgery. So the first group, they received the full surgery, which was basically cleaning up any cartilage, any loose material in the knee joint. They'd flush out the joint, and then they'd sew them back up. the second group, what they did was they just opened up the knee joint and they flushed out the joint. And the third group, what they did was, it was quite complex. And what they did was, it was a double-blind study, so the surgeon didn't even know which type of surgery he was going to do, even before 10 minutes before the surgery. But the third group was full placebo. But instead of just giving them an incision and sewing them back up, what they did was Bruce actually had a recording of the full surgery on a screen, and he actually pretended that he was doing the full surgery, and he was in the operating room for about 45 minutes. So his relatives outside would think that, oh, it must be the proper surgery that they're receiving because they're in the operating room for that amount of time. And the nurse was handing them the equipment at the right time, and he was making all the noises and everything as if he was doing the full surgery. And so what actually happened was all three groups did phenomenally well. It was a total success. So this is totally incredible because it proved that the knee surgery, arthroscopic knee surgery, is 100% a placebo effect. So yeah, they thought that it was because of the surgery, and they wanted to figure out, you know, what part of the surgery was it that was the most effective, and they realized that the whole thing is just power of the mind. It was their positive expectation that they were going to get better. And then the people, what they noticed is they were able to ditch their walking canes, they were able to walk, able to do normal things, their pain was virtually eliminated, and they caught up with them years later, 2 or 3 years later, and they actually held on to all of the positive gains that they had from doing that placebo surgery. Incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've read so many books on this. I find it fascinating. Yeah, there are countless studies out there and mind-blowing examples of, you know, people getting what they expect and their mind actually doing it, whether it being they get fake chemo and their hair falls out because they expect their hair to fall out, or, you know, all sorts of really amazing examples of what our mind can do. And I remember when I first got sick and my doctor had me on so many supplements and I was taking about 100 pills a day.
Wow.
And I didn't have a lot of faith in it. But yeah, it was insane. I was spending a couple $1,000s a month just on supplements. But I remember thinking, like, where is this placebo effect? Like, I just, like, at the very least, I should be getting, like, because it didn't seem like it was doing anything. I'm like, with 100 pills a day, like, you'd think at least 10 of them I'd be getting the placebo effect or something, which, you know, gets me, which I'd love for you to talk about, because I didn't really believe in those supplements. So is there an opposite side to the placebo effect? I believe I know the answer to that, but I'd like to hear you get into that a little bit.
There absolutely is. So yeah, there basically is something called, it's like placebo's evil twin. It's called the nocebo effect. And it's where people, just like what you said, people are expecting negative results and they actually experience them. So yeah, that actual trial, that's the one that I wanted to share about chemotherapy. It's one of the most powerful. So it's basically where people were expecting that they're receiving chemotherapy. And what they noticed is 30% of the people in the group that were receiving the placebo actually had hair loss, and 56% of the people had nausea. So that was just as a result of the expectation that they were actually going to notice those side effects.
So how does this nocebo effect affect people who are working on their ME/CFS recovery or, you know, similar conditions?
I remember when I was receiving the diagnosis of chronic fatigue, and I was basically told that it was an incurable illness. So I think oftentimes people are either told that or they read it online, and it's complete BS. I just want to say that straight away. It is treatable. You can get better from it. But receiving that kind of a diagnosis, and like initially when I received the diagnosis, I was like, yes, okay, we know what it is now. It's chronic fatigue. Let's do something about it. Let's see what kind of treatments they had for it. But then they didn't have a treatment for it, unfortunately. And so I was basically told that it was incurable as well. And I was researching it and I found like negative information online. And basically it created a negative expectation because I was thinking that I had something that I couldn't treat and I didn't know how to treat it. It was a lot of stress as well because I had to try and figure out how to heal it by myself. And that definitely triggered the fight or flight response even more. Like if I was stressed before, I had a whole bunch of other things to stress about with the diagnosis. And yeah, basically the fight or flight response, it affected all of my organs. So our fight or flight response, it's basically something that's completely natural. It's designed to protect us. So if there was a real physical threat, like let's say a dog was running after you, you're either going to fight that dog or run away from it. So your body changes, has basically lots of changes in our physiology to adapt to that. So if a dog was running after you, there's no point in being able to digest your food, or putting energy into your immune system, or detoxification, or remembering something that happened 10 years ago. So all of those non-essential functions are down-regulated when someone is expecting that there's a real physical threat. But our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something that we imagine as a threat, for example, the illness itself, versus a real physical threat like a dog or a bear or something coming after us. And I couldn't escape from the chronic fatigue or the diagnosis and all of the symptoms. I couldn't run from it, and I couldn't fight it. As much as I tried to fight it, to push my recovery and everything, I couldn't. So yeah, that was creating a huge amount of stress in my body, and it definitely had a negative impact until I started changing that.
And I'm sure most of us seem to have noticed that many of us, not everybody, but a lot of us who come down with fatigue conditions like these, looking back, we realized that we were in a chronically stressed state before we even got sick. Like, so many of us were pushing ourselves so hard but that anxiety and that stress was so prevalent in our life that it just became normalized. Like, I know for me, I didn't even really realize that it was there. And then we get really sick and that just amps it up even further. And we've already got this sort of, conditioned way of approaching life. So I'm just thinking about this kind of perfect storm, many of us are chronically stressed. We are in that fight or flight. We are in this kind of danger mode a lot of the time, and then we get sick, and that just continues or amplifies. So I think a lot of us are coming to appreciate the importance of sort of switching that off. But how does switching that off, impact our health and our healing from conditions like this?
Yeah, totally. So I wasn't aware either the amount of stress that I was experiencing, that I was going through, because I had lived with that stress for quite a long time. The opposite of the sympathetic nervous system is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the rest and digest healing response. And this is why it was completely miraculous for me, because when I was switching off that stress response, then suddenly, instead of my organs being downregulated and everything functioning suboptimally, then everything started to come back online. So then basically my digestion, my immune system, my sleep, everything, detoxification, everything started to work again. And that's why it was completely miraculous. Having a positive expectation that I was going to get better was hugely important as well. But switching off that stress response, that was huge. That was the missing thing. That's why when I was taking all the supplements and I was doing all kinds of different treatments and things, they weren't really working, because I was in such a state of stress. And I needed to change my expectation about recovery as well.
Yeah, I get so many messages from people and emails. It's unbelievable. It's still, okay, it's becoming believable to me now because I've heard it so many times, but it's still a tough thing to wrap my head around, because people write me, they're like, I was so incredibly sick. I thought my life was over. It went on for years. And then I started meditating multiple times a day, or like I realized the stress that I was in. And so many people, what got them out of this is something along those lines. And it's still, I think, a hard pill for us to swallow that we have been so sick, like laid out, lost our jobs, maybe lost relationships, lost homes. And it's just like meditation or brain training is going to fix this. It doesn't seem, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so I actually, part of the reason why I was ill for 11 years is because I was highly skeptical of brain training, to be honest. So if someone had told me about brain training initially, I would have basically thought that someone was trying to tell me that the illness was in my brain, that it was all just in my mind, which I was completely against, because I knew that the physical symptoms were all completely real. I knew that it wasn't just about like positive thinking or something to get better. I think I was very skeptical. I used to be an engineer in the past, so I have a very logical mind, and I love science and research and everything. So it took quite a long time actually for me to become open to brain retraining. That when I did so much research looking at people that had fully healed, like what did they actually do? And so many people use brain retraining to get better that I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I fed my mind information that really supported it. So I read books like You're the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, and The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, Mind Over Medicine by Lissa Rankin. Things like that really It's awesome, yeah. It really opened my mind to how basically our mind can influence our body. It has such a powerful effect. It's not like our mind is separate from our body. I know Western medicine likes to look at things from a reductionist perspective of like, if someone's ill, they look at their organ, like a specific organ, and they treat that, and then the whole body gets better then. But for something like chronic fatigue, ME, fibromyalgia, long COVID, it's something that's like broader than that. You're looking at things that affect the sympathetic nervous system, like the amount of stress that people go through with this. It affects all kinds of different areas of the body. It's not just one specific thing, and that's why brain retraining can be really effective for it.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of a spectrum of coming to acceptance with this for those, because in the beginning it can feel almost insulting hearing stuff like this. And already we have a condition that is very poorly understood and has a crappy name like chronic fatigue syndrome, or even myalgic encephalomyelitis sounds more legit, but no one's heard of it. So we've already been through this this hard time in our life when we're trying to explain to people what's happening to us, and we have this illness that nobody understands. And then when we finally get better, we have to tell people it was through like brain training or meditation. I feel like it further delegitimizes our whole experience, or it can feel that way. It shouldn't, but I think it makes it harder for people sometimes to wrap their head around that this could be, or that this is such a powerful healing thing. So the more we talk about this, I just love bringing awareness to it and help normalizing this conversation so we can start appreciating how incredible this is. Because I hate to think, because we have millions of people around the world that are facing these conditions right now. And I'm sure you are not alone in, closing your mind off to this, at least for a time, because it just didn't sound
Yeah, it sounded too miraculous or something.
like it could possibly be the answer.
It sounded too easy.
Yeah, but then we just the thought of people being stuck in suffering when maybe this is something that could help them.
Some things that people can start doing is actually building confidence in recovery. That's super important. So watching recovery stories on your channel, that is definitely helping to boost people's confidence, which is awesome. And there's, you have so many recovery stories. There were not so many recovery stories when I was getting better. So that is a godsend, an absolute godsend. I commend you for that. I absolutely do. But yeah, rewiring. Rewiring is super important as well. So redirecting your brain. So if I noticed that I was scanning my body for symptoms, I was, when I wake up in the morning for the 11 years, pretty much every day, I was scanning my body for symptoms, wondering if I was going to have like a bad day or a really bad day. But those neural pathways had gotten strong because I was focusing on the illness and the symptoms and all those things and what I couldn't do and worrying about things. So what I did was I started to rewire it. I started to redirect my brain to positive things, thinking about recovery, expecting things to really work and looking forward to getting better. And with repetition, that really works. But psychologist Alan Richardson in Australia, he actually did a fascinating study. It was about visualization. So visualization is the key component of brain retraining. The study was actually of basketball players. So you had two different groups. And what he did was over 20 days, he got people to practice basketball every single day for 20 days for a certain length of time. And then the second group, what he did was he had people actually just sit down on a chair and visualize actually getting the basketball in the net every single time. So they weren't touching a basketball at all in those 20 days. And what they noticed after the 20 days is a 24% increase basically an improvement in their accuracy. And what they noticed is 24% for physically practicing, but it was 23% for people that were just visualizing getting the basketball in the net every single time. Almost exact same results. And they hadn't even touched it. So it's incredible. And there's also research to prove that actually focusing on imagining building up your muscle strength can actually increase your muscle mass, which is like totally mind-blowing. So your mind positively influencing your body just from visualization. And all athletes do this. All winning athletes, it can make such a massive difference to their performance. Whether they get like first place or 10th place, their mindset is hugely important in determining that result. So another study that was done by Amy Cuddy, she's a Harvard lecturer, and she studied people basically measuring their confidence levels before they were going for job interviews. And what she did was she measured what they were actually doing with their physiology. So she got them to do specific poses, specific things with their physiology before they were basically going for the job interview. And she got them to do low power poses versus high power poses. So what was the low power pose? So low power pose was basically maybe hunching over, looking at their notes before they're going into the job interview. That kind of physiology is associated with anxiety, like looking at phones all day.
Right.
It's probably not the best thing that people do these days. But basically high power poses, that's where you would put your hands on your hips. It's like a Wonder Woman pose or Superman pose. And actually by adopting this kind of confident physiology where they're basically making their body like larger, they're taking up more space, that actually had influence on their hormone levels. So not only did they actually feel more confident before the job interview, just after 5 minutes of practicing this, they noticed that they had like the low power pose versus the high power pose, there was a difference of 40%. So 40% reduction in cortisol, the stress hormone, with the power poses. And also an increase in testosterone that's associated with confidence of 30%. And that's within just 5 minutes of practicing that. So visualization and physiology is really important as well. And so the next thing I want to share is about neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? It's the ability of our brain to adapt and respond to things. So years ago, they used to think that our brains were malleable when we were a kid, and then when we were 18 or 20 years old, that our brains were completely fixed. It was like a computer circuit after that point, but that's completely untrue. Science has proven that our brain can actually adapt to so many things, pretty much anything. So in terms of neuroplasticity, how does that influence people in terms of their recovery from chronic fatigue? So when you consistently redirect your brain, instead of your brain going towards stressing or worrying about things, you're having it so that you're really encouraging yourself to feel so much more relaxed, and you're focusing on building confidence in recovery and looking forward to doing things in your near future, and gradually building on that and becoming, basically what happens in your brain is that initially when I started to change my thought patterns and redirecting it to positive things, it was kind of like my neural pathways were like a dirt road. But the more consistent I was with the brain retraining, then those neural pathways became like a super highway in my brain. And so, yeah, it's incredible that our brain can adapt like that. But that's, thank goodness for neuroplasticity, or I'd still be doing brain retraining for my recovery. I just did it for 2 months. And I solidified the changes in my brain. So instead of my neural pathways going towards like stress and worry and not believing in my recovery and all that, I started to really believe in my recovery and started to feel so much more relaxed, embodying deep blissful relaxation, and encouraging myself how to do that. And we're going to get into a process in a moment showing you how to do that.
I have to constantly remind myself that all of this doesn't just apply to healing, because I'm always talking about it in the context of ME/CFS or long COVID or fibromyalgia, but it applies to virtually every area of our life. And as you're talking, I've just got light bulbs going off. Like I recently started snowboarding again after 10 years of not doing it, and I was terrible. Like it was after a few hours I could get down a green run, but so I've been at the gym, like getting ready for my next one. I'm like, why aren't I doing like brain training? I should just be, but a powerful thing I could be doing is just visualizing myself successfully getting down the hill. It's just crazy to me how much of what I learned from my recovery is serving me in every other aspect of my life. It's just really powerful information. It's, I think, the silver lining of the nightmare that we go through is that we come through it with tools that help us. And it takes time to realize all the things that you've lost. Like I've had a lot of gratitude. I think it's been about 3 years or more now since I recovered, but I like snowboarding. It was such a moving experience for me to go snowboarding because I used to be a snowboarder and that was something that got taken away from me. So there's still these, it just keeps coming.
So good.
I know what you mean. There's just so much gratitude for so many things. Like, yes, things that I totally took for granted before. Now I'm like, this is incredible.
Fantastic.
Okay. So we promised people a brain training activity that you would share with them. So, and I'm excited to hear about this as well. So what is that?
Awesome. Okay, so here is a simple 3-step brain retraining method that people can use that brings all this information together that I've just shared. So the first thing to do is basically noticing a thought, emotion, or expectation that you want to change or improve. So awareness is definitely one of the first steps. But in terms of the process itself, it's 3 steps. So first step is saying stop. So actually saying stop with a physical gesture, it can be just like that, but also with positive emotion. You don't want it to be like a kind of frustrated or annoyed stop at a pattern. So what you want to do is, if you wanted to feel more relaxed, if you felt a little bit stressed, you want to feel more relaxed, you would say stop, but also with the physiology, so your body being nice and relaxed, but also the tone as well and the pace of relaxation. So it would be like stop, like that. So it's kind of like firm, but no aggressiveness to it whatsoever. So the second step is making an empowered choice. So you would say, I choose to feel, if you want to feel more relaxed, it would be, I choose to feel deeply and blissfully relaxed. Or if you're working on your confidence, then you'd say, I choose to believe. So I choose to believe, and then you fill in the blank after that, it would be, I choose to believe that I can get fully better. Third step is visualization. So this really helps to encourage healthy emotions, like positive emotions. So imagining either a past experience that helps you to feel better, or you can imagine a future experience. So if you wanted to feel more relaxed, then you could imagine being maybe on a beautiful beach in the future. So if you're on that beautiful beach, what you want to do then is like close your eyes, imagining that, and then tune in with all of your senses. So what can you see, hear, feel, touch, everything? Smell, maybe the smell of the ocean. What else would you notice? The blue sky, maybe the sand between your toes, and the warmth of the sunshine. For me, it probably would be the smell of Factor 50 sun cream as well. Seagulls flying over. Maybe there's some dogs paddling in the water. So you just notice those things, you tune in with all of your senses, just for a few minutes, to help your body to feel more relaxed in that example. Or if you want to feel more confident, then you would tune into a time maybe where you climbed a mountain in the past, or you were snowboarding. Or if you wanted to imagine that maybe you're able to walk for an hour in the near future, or you're able to hike a mountain or something like that, you would tune in to it, you'd imagine you're there, and you'd notice all of your senses again. So if I was imagining climbing a mountain, then what I would do is, while I was in recovery, I probably would imagine a smaller mountain rather than Mount Everest, because it's more believable. But I would imagine climbing that mountain, and I would notice all the beautiful nature all around me. I notice the strength in my legs as I'm recovering. I notice the energy flowing through my body, and the feeling of confidence and openness and freedom, knowing that I'm on the right track, getting better. Okay, so in conclusion, you use all of your senses, really tuning into that positive emotion, and really building a brighter future in your mind. So you want to build on that positive expectation as much as possible. So to summarize all of what I just shared, the first step is awareness. So becoming aware of a thought pattern, an emotion, or an expectation that you want to change or upgrade. First part of the process is stopping the old pattern. So let's take the example of relaxation. I would say, stop like that. Pay attention to my physiology. Make sure it's nice and relaxed, not like fidgeting with my hands or something. And also what you do is pay attention to your breathing. So slow down your breathing rate as well. Maybe take a nice deep breath and just breathe out. Then you're making a new choice. And if you're speaking out loud doing this, do it with a nice relaxing tone of voice as well. So you'd say something like, I choose to feel deeply and blissfully relaxed. Yeah. Step 3 is where you're visualizing. So you're doing a really powerful visualization, either stepping back to a time, to like a nice memory where you're feeling totally relaxed, or stepping into the future. So where you're maybe on holidays and enjoying being maybe in a rainforest or at the beach or somewhere nice and relaxing. And just allowing yourself to really notice everything you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch, everything. And immersing yourself and your body in those positive emotions, and allowing your body to really enjoy that.
I feel better just of having listened to that. I didn't even do the activity. I could just feel myself relaxing and stress melting away. I'm like, oh yeah, this is nice. Can I just call you up? Can you do my brain training? Jason, can you walk me through something?
Awesome.
Oh, that's really great. Thank you for explaining that.
Sorry, just to expand on that as well. So 80% of the time, I would say, for brain retraining, the thing that people really want to focus on is relaxation and confidence. And the reason why is because if you're feeling really relaxed and confident, what can you do? Pretty much anything, but even more so when you're talking about recovery, because people normally have a severe lack of confidence in their recovery and also too much stress. So we want to increase that relaxation level and focus on building confidence and positive expectation in recovery. And yeah, 80% of the time, those are the type of rounds that I would recommend. So it's doing one specifically for relaxation or one specifically for confidence. This can be completely miraculous. Like doing this consistently, I was doing this, initially I was doing it too many times a day, to be honest. But as I started to do this more and more, when I was getting better, my brain was basically positively influencing my body more and more, and I was getting better at it. I was getting more skilled. I wasn't so great at it when I started, but then I was becoming really good at encouraging my body to feel so much more relaxed. And then, suddenly my body was starting to heal. And that's why I wasn't healing in the past, is because I was resting, I was trying my best to relax, but I was still stressed about all the symptoms and the illness itself. And when I started to change that, my God, that's why it was completely miraculous. So I hope you guys totally enjoy this. This is a brief process that you can use to help yourself to start doing brain retraining.
And so when people come, because now you're working with people and supporting others on their healing journey. So what does that look like when you work with people? What could people expect if they reached out to you?
Yeah, so I have a full online brain training program. So I basically explain all the ins and outs of everything that I needed to get better. There's obviously many more things that we've discussed today, but it's really dealing with two things. So it's basically dealing with whatever is present for you right now. So the patterns, some of the patterns that we discussed today, like the stress and the worry and the lack of confidence. And then the other thing we want to focus on is really the predisposing factors. So one of the most common things I've noticed, like everyone that I've helped to get better has had it, is an overachiever pattern. Always pushing themselves way too much, overachiever. People who are either like athletes or close to it, or they were pushing themselves really much in their work, in their career in the past, or whatever area of their life. They were just basically type A overachiever, complete lack of self-compassion. So self-compassion is a huge component of my recovery program. It's really, really important. I wouldn't have gotten better only for self-compassion, actually. But it's also many other things, of course. It's building on your confidence in recovery, your belief, building rock solid belief that you can do this, and allowing yourself enough time to get better, but also not expecting that recovery has to take 6 months or 12 months or something, because it doesn't. So the average recovery rate for people recovering with my program is 2 to 4 months. So that's the kind of recovery rate. For me, when I was getting better, that was completely outside of my belief system. I thought that it was going to take at least a year. Yeah. But it's amazing what can happen when you focus on, really dealing with the root cause and what makes the biggest difference. So my program consists of the full online video series and also tons of one-to-one support from me directly as well. So I coach people for 6 weeks in a row, coaching call every week. And I give access to me directly as well via WhatsApp, so people can message me any time of the day, even on a Sunday. I'm there to help people because I know exactly what it was like going through it myself. And it's my passion. This is my full-time career, helping people to overcome chronic fatigue syndrome. I know exactly what it was like. And on the other side, my God, it is worth all of the effort. So I just really want to reiterate that, belief is so important. You definitely put all of your effort into believing that you can get fully better. And that's what I did. And here I am now, fully better, helping people to recover for the past 5 years and fully healed 7 years. If I did it, you can do it as well.
This is amazing. I'm so grateful that you exist and that I'm so happy that you got past your own health challenges and now you're out there helping other people, because this is just can be such a hellish condition. And it's just incredible that this support is now available, because as we know, for far too long, there was just really nothing. And now we have things that are actually helping people get their lives back. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason, and for everything that you do. I really appreciate you. I'm so happy to have you back on the channel. I hope to have you again. So yeah, Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And for people watching, all of Jason's information, of course, will be in the video description. So I really encourage you to expand that and take a look and check out what he has to offer, because there's some really great stuff there. And also for people watching, if you're not already aware, I have a weekly email that I send out. And if you're on my mailing list, then I do a summary of most of my videos like this to make sure that you won't miss anything, because I know you can't always see them all. So if you're not already signed up, there's a link for that in the video description as well. And then you'll make sure that you're getting all of this, including Jason's details, delivered right to your inbox. So yeah, thank you so much to those of you watching. Big hugs to you. Keep at it. You have totally got this. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope to see you in the next video.